All right, in math, the standard that we're working on is to partition, which means to split up into parts, circles and rectangles, into 2 and 4 equal shares, meaning each piece is the same amount. Describe the shares using the words halves, fourths, and quarters, and use the phrases half of, fourth of, and quarter of. Describe the whole as 2 of or 4 of the shares. Understand for these examples that decomposing, we decompose numbers, but you can decompose a circle or a rectangle or a shape too. It's just breaking it apart into more equal shares creates smaller shares. So in other words, this last part, we have our whole. They partitioned it into 2 equal parts. So here's 1/2 of it. But notice the 1/2, this would be the fourth or the quarter of, is a bigger part than if you were to see this part. So halves are 2 equal parts, and the shapes are cut in half. They have 2 parts that are the same. The 2 halves are the same. These are the same size. Those are called equal parts. They have to be the same size. And fourths is you have 4 equal parts, and the shapes are cut in quarters. We call quarters and fourths the same thing. It's just dividing it into 4 parts. I think they get the word quarters because it takes 4 quarters to equal $1, or 4 quarters to equal 1 whole. If you look at the size of each of these parts, they're all the same size. So these shapes are cut into quarters. They have 4 parts that are the same. The 4 quarters are the same. So if, let's say, Zion got this piece and Angelique got this piece and Diana got this piece and Carlos got this piece, they would all be fine with that because they're getting the same size piece. So here's a circle. I'll try to draw that with my finger so it's not perfect. And this is a rectangle. Notice these 2 sides are the same size and these 2 sides are the same size. Equal shares. So let's see what that would look like. So if I'm going to divide this into 2 equal shares, I'm going to divide it down the middle. That way each side is the same size. When we have something, we can have something this way, like with the rectangle, or we can have something another way too. Let me erase this so it's not too confusing. We can also cut something in half or have halves by going left to right. So the first time I went up and down to create halves, this time I went left to right to create halves, which are both the same size. Now talking about cutting it into fourths. So let's see what that would look like. An easy way to do this, if you have to do this yourself, is divide it into halves first, and then divide that into halves like this. Okay? Quarters and fourths are the same thing. So we're going to do the same thing over here to make sure that we have equal shares. I'm going to divide it into half, and then I'm going to split that part into half. So I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 halves make 1 whole, and 4 fourths make 1 whole. So we have 2 halves, 1, 2, to create the whole. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 fourths to create 1 whole. All right, so here we have 1 whole. We have our two halves, 1 and 2, to make the one whole. And we have one whole, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fourths, or 4 quarters, to equal one whole. Notice all of these shares are equal shares. Same thing here. All of these are divided into equal size pieces. And that's our lesson today. We worked on dividing or partitioning circles and rectangles into 2 and 4 equal shares, describing the shares using the words halves, fourths, and quarters, and use the phrases half of, fourth of, and quarter of. Okay?